guys, welcome back to Michael Clarida Arts. Today we're going to be doing something that I think is needed, which is drawing. Man, it's been a hot minute since I sat down and didn't review something, didn't have an opinion about something, and just sat down and drew something. Of course, it is scary season, so I figured let's do something scary. I really don't draw anything scary, to be honest with you. I mean, I do a lot of toys and stuff for Harry Potter and some of the other properties, from Warner Brothers and Universal Studios, but I really don't do anything grotesque and scary. I have the ability, and I have done a few things in the past, but honestly, it's not really my shtick, my zone, my jam. So today we're going to be working on Frankenstein, and we're going to be doing just a really simple actual time sketch. I really don't want to get into time lapse just because what I've noticed is time lapse, even though it is great to really show, the ability of, what I'm doing, it doesn't really give you guys an opportunity to see exactly the real-time process. So I've got my camera right here. I've got my tablet right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go in and we're going to start drawing. Let's go ahead and modify my canvas size slightly. Let me see, inches, width. Let's do 16. Okay, here we go. So my canvas is 16 by 15, 300 dpi. I'm working in Photoshop today, so I'm going to go ahead and start doing a sketch drawing. Frankenstein. Of course, it being the Halloween season. It's like the Halloween season grows every year, doesn't it? My goodness. Used to be, Halloween lasted, a few weeks in October, and you had your haunted houses. Haunted houses really didn't even show up until after, maybe October 15th, October 17th, and then they would run all the way through October 31st. And then come November 1st, everything stopped. Your scary season was completely over. Nowadays, it being a huge moneymaker, the world needs, that escapism. The whole holiday season, not holiday, holy day, that's where holiday came from. The Halloween season lasts now 2 to 3 months. I mean, it starts in August, it goes through September, and then October, and probably half of November. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm kind of a traditionalist, being I want the seasons to kind of stay in their zone. But now we're seeing we're seeing Christmas and Halloween butt up against each other in the stores. And frankly, I just think that's kind of weird and kind of confusing for, the world in general. I like the season. But again, it's one of those deals where it just has to do with personal preference. And, I would just like the seasons to stop invading each other's space. Kind of like the Nightmare Before Christmas, whenever Halloween kind of went in and invaded the Christmas space. And you're like, that would never happen. And now you look at it and you go, that is a normal. So, Frankenstein, who is he? Well, Victor Frankenstein is a scientist. We all kind of know the story of Victor. And that's what happens whenever you don't check the power on your microphone. My goodness, what an idiotic mistake I've made. So I figured instead of trashing the entire video, I'm going to go ahead and just talk over what I'm doing. And if eventually I can't think of anything to say, then I will go ahead and just put some music in there while I draw. So, what am I doing? Of course, I was talking about Frankenstein, the story of Frankenstein, being a scientist and then being tortured, that tortured scientist that's trying to accomplish something in their field that is revolutionary, is pushing the boundaries of what is acceptable in the world, and I can completely relate, I can't remember what I'm talking about right here, but I'm very passionate about what I'm talking about. So I think ultimately what I'm going to probably end up doing is just putting you guys on time lapse. But as you see, what I'm doing, I'm putting in that roadmap, I talk about that a lot whenever I'm drawing, is that roadmap, leading your eye, defining the shapes, defining the forms, and helping me realize where stuff needs to go. A lot of times, in the context of the illustration, in the context of what I'm doing, if I don't have a creative brief, if I don't have clear direction, or if I'm just kind of doodling, a lot of times the drawing will speak to me. It's a weird phenomenon that, as I'm going through, as I'm developing, I'll have a thought, just like I have a thought for this piece, but as I go, there's that moment where, you finally, it's like a light going on in your head, or your creative juices start flowing. And as I go through, I start deciding on what I'm going to do, what makes sense. And this being the doodle / concept, since I didn't do a thumbnail, that's exactly what is happening. I'm going through and I'm putting in my base. And as I progress through, maybe I'll go in and put in some textures. Maybe I'll go in and define some color. But that's the whole joy of sitting down and drawing. And especially in this digital environment, you can work so quickly. You can change your brushes. You can, change your lighting effects. You can change the mood. And as you see, I've decided to go ahead and, talk about the brushes and stuff. And one of the things that a lot of people ask me about is that sketch brush that I'm using. I've modified the sketch brush from its original creator, and the original creator of that particular brush is Aaron Blaze over at creatureartteacher.com, and I believe he sells that particular brush in a brush set for like $3. So if you're interested in that particular sketch brush in its original configuration, then, and it's very great. I mean, he did a wonderful job with the texture, the pressure curve, the shape of the brush and whatnot. And you can go over and pick that brush up. It's Pastel C, and if you get the entire set, which I believe you have to, you can't just buy that brush. You get a myriad of brushes in there that are really helpful. That's his standard brush set. I will be offering brushes on my channel as a link there, in the description soon. Again, with the balance of work going over to my professional career, a lot of times I don't have a lot of time at the end of the day to create a store. You guys notice I did actually create an apparel store that I've been uploading a few things to here and there down on my shelf. So if you're interested in getting some original artwork printed on a shirt, I will be uploading numerous pieces of artwork to that store, and you can head on over to Spreadshirt. Now, it's not going to so much be promoting the channel like a lot of YouTubers do. They'll have the name of the channel on there. I feel that's kind of I don't know how to put it, a little prideful. So instead of doing that, I'm just putting some fun art up there that I've created, in my 20 plus years of being an artist. And hopefully, you're the one that ultimately, can appreciate the artwork. So hopefully you guys can go over there and spend a couple bucks. I think of every purchase, I may get $2. Out of that 15 or 20 bucks that they charge, I may get $2. So, I don't get the bulk of the profit from that sale. A lot of people are confused. They're like, oh, you have your t-shirt shop. What are you, a millionaire? No, not even close. I mean, basically, it's just enough for me to, merit putting the artwork up on my shop. So, and then, of course, I'll be putting tutorials up, which I'm currently working on, a tutorial for you guys for the basics of Photoshop. I have that video, which is one of my more popular videos, on there, on YouTube, of learning Photoshop. But I'm going to go a little bit more in depth of, the different file types, the menus, pressure curves, how to create brushes, so on and so forth, to help in the layer compositing and all the filters. And it's going to probably be like a 10-part tutorial, and I'll charge about $5 for it. And it'll be a great resource for those beginning Photoshop. There are tips and tricks that I've learned over the years that I will infuse into future tutorials, and Photoshop will not be the only program that I'll do a tutorial on. I'll do Clip Studio Paint, I'll do Rebel, I'll do Painter, Fresco. I hesitate to do ZBrush, but you never know. I do use ZBrush in my professional career, and I do know a little bit about it, and just not to the point where I feel really comfortable about teaching about it. I don't want to do that. I do use Procreate as well, and Illustrator. Gosh, so many visual programs. Sketchbook Pro, that's another one I'll do a tutorial on. And, of course, the basics of drawing. Drawing, shading, learning the principles of art and design, learning about color theory. There's a lot of people teaching about stuff like that. But I want to go through and actually show my thought process and how I learned in doing these things. Because at the end of the day, all that gets molded, all that teaching, all that learning, everything gets molded into a feeling. Whenever you look at a piece of artwork and you're like, that just doesn't feel right, and you don't quite understand why. And I'm going to teach you to understand why something doesn't really feel right. And, it's kind of infused in a lot of us as creatives, or even the layman. They've been trained to understand and know what looks good. And that's why a lot of times you'll have people that'll look at something and say, I don't like it. And it'll be a really quick read, and whenever you ask them why, a lot of times their response is, I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it just doesn't gel with me, or it's not my jam. That's kind of the telltale sign that even though they know deep down what's wrong or what they don't like about it, they can't vocalize. And part of being a good artist and a good designer and a good illustrator and a person that creates is being able to talk. You can't stick your head in your phone whenever you're in a business meeting and rely upon those phone skills that we've learned over the past 12 years or 13 years or however long smartphones have been around. You need to be able to talk and vocalize and explain an idea. But getting back to this, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on a quick time lapse with a little bit of music, so you guys can hopefully forgive me for not charging the battery on the microphone. Just an idiotic mistake, and I didn't realize it until after the entire little sketch part was done. But good thing is I didn't get all the way through, so in a few seconds here, we'll get back to the sketch and get back to the artwork and continue on with the process of creating this little illustration of Frankenstein. So, enjoy the tunes. Okay, so I'm still in the sketch phase. Man, I'll tell you what, I said I wasn't going to do a time lapse, and I literally, the majority of this video is a time lapse. And that is a big apology to you guys. Um, the challenge with these illustrations, as I said before, is they take time. They take time, they take effort, you just can't sit down and in 20 minutes, do a speed paint that looks halfway decent. That's why you see a lot of super hyper fast time lapses. But, my thought process is I'm trying to get something to you guys that actually you can use, you can, learn from it in some capacity. Um, as I progress through and learning what makes sense in this channel, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to see some things like this as kind of trial and error. So I wanted it to be a seasonal piece. It is Frankenstein. I wanted it to kind of showcase, that simple portraiture that you can do. It looks hyper complex, but at the end of the day, it's really not. I mean, all the layer compositing you see me doing over there and going through the brushes, and now I'm starting to put in some color, and I'm very broad when I put in color, and I work from the back forward. You see on layer 12 there on the right hand side, and then I create layer 13, and I just start putting in layers and blocking in color underneath the sketch. And at one particular point in time, you'll see here in a few minutes, I was going to go really painterly and really detailed, but I'm like, I've got so much to do and so much work that I just don't think that I'll be able to put in, 15, 20 hours into this piece and be happy with it. So I just really kept it loose, and that's kind of where the direction I'm headed. I did spend a little bit more time on the sketch, and I noticed even though I made the statement, that I love having sketchy lines, my sketch process is a mess, and I sometimes love it, and sometimes it kind of works against me whenever I go to final, because I like the drawing that I have, but I really have to sit down and determine my final line. So in just a second, you're going to see me go in and I hide all the layers, basically, except for my sketch layer, and I do a final line for the character. I keep all the periphery on the outside and, all the brush and trees and stuff. I don't go in and draw that. I just go in and really finalize him. And it does. It changes. It's kind of one of those things, with my style. Yeah, you see I'm starting to paint, and I'm like, I'm not really feeling this, because I don't do a lot of really heavy painterly stuff anymore. I just don't. It's just the nature of what I do, doing rapid prototyping and stuff. It's, it is what it is. And that's just one of those things where I started getting into it, and I'm like, gosh, I don't really want to spend this much time on this piece. So, in a second here, you're going to see me hide all the layers, and then I'm going to go ahead and go and finalize my line work. So, why do I use Photoshop so much? Well, just for the benefit of a lot of people out there getting into the business, Photoshop is one of those programs that, and I've said this before, is one of those programs that is a Swiss Army knife of artistic resource. It does so much, and it does so much really well, that to learn Photoshop is one of those key elements in a young digital illustrator, artist, graphic designer's tool belt that they really need to develop. If you don't know Photoshop, well, one of the big hang-ups with Photoshop is the fact that it's so expensive. Back in the day when it was $1,000 for Photoshop, and you would get, maybe 2 years of updates for free, and then boom, you had to upgrade, which was another $250 to $300, and that was kind of a bummer. I know that really put a lot of people off of learning Photoshop when they went to the subscription model. Here you see me, I'm putting in my final line. The subscription model, it really opened the door to a lot of people obtaining the the pathway to learning Photoshop without having to pay an arm and a leg for it. And then, of course, you had the people that are like, stupid Adobe went to the subscription model, and, now they're going to ping me for, $20 a month, and if you look at it in that respect, that does kind of stink, but also, again, it's not that much money, in my business model, and I'm pretty happy with the subscription. I'm got a teacher credential, so for the entire Creative Suite, I think I pay $33 or $35, which is actually great. So I get all of the apps, not only on the iPad but also on the Surface, and it's a floating license, so I can go in between all the machines and activate as needed. So I've got Photoshop, I think, installed on maybe 5 machines, and it's that floating license, and I can go in and activate, deactivate, and it doesn't erase anything, and it's just great. So yeah, Photoshop again. I've got all these brushes, and it's an industry standard um, that so many people use, and it does so much. And I highly encourage you to learn the program. Everybody says that Photoshop is again one of those programs that does so much, and it does so much really well. And one thing it does really well is crash. I digress. I'm kidding. You see, I'm starting to experiment a little bit with textures in the eyes. Ultimately, I didn't want to get too detailed with this, so I ended up not doing those eye textures. You'll see later on in the time lapse. But yeah, simplification is one of those things as character designers that we have to choose. Pick and choose what makes sense. What makes sense in the context of the character and storytelling. That's kind of the key and the root of character design. You have to edit. And a lot of times, certain things don't make sense. I forget what I was seeing recently. Gosh, I can't remember. I watched the new James Bond movie. So the new James Bond movie, wonderful movie. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. But one of the characters in there is a female, and she shows up, and I'm just, I'm observing and whatnot, and it's a strong character. She's strong in terms of presence, but then in the very end, I got to talking with my son, and I'm always trying to kind of push him a little bit on what makes sense in movies. And I said, "What'd you think about that character?" And I referenced the character I just brought up, and he said, "Yeah, that particular character didn't make sense. There was no really reason for it." And I thought to myself, yeah, that character didn't make any sense. There was no reason for it. And, it kind of was just like a throw-in. Certain movies, they have characters that are throw-ins, to possibly give somebody a job or to, have a female presence or an ethnic presence, but they don't really add anything to the context of the story. So, yeah, that was, again, whenever you, as a director, as a production designer, as a story person, you have to ask yourself, does this particular character make sense? Is it a core? Is it a peripheral? So that's in terms of character design, I wanted to make sure and have all the visual cues that makes this a Frankenstein. Obviously, the teeth were not originally in there, but you have the neck bolt, you have the wild-looking eyes. I didn't have the the lazy eyes that the traditional Frankenstein had, but I do have the head cap, but not like a real huge brow. I didn't want that either. So, that's just, as an artist, that's one of the things that we're allowed to do, right? We can go in and edit. We can go in and have some fun, and and be artistic. That's one of the things that makes this whole art adventure fun. You see, I kind of go in between maybe 3 or 4 brushes, and whenever I need a scatter brush, I'll go over to my scatter brushes over there. But, that one, Mike's favorite brush that I use, and then I use the brush that I believe I'm on right now, which is really has a really good pressure curve to it. It's just a round brush with a pressure curve. Now that one brush that I've had a lot of people question about, the root of it, the original, was created by an artist by the name of Aaron Blaze, and I've modified it to the point now where I feel comfortable in saying that I've modified an existing brush. Now, I'm not going to give it away because, again, I didn't create the original brush, but I've modified it to the point where it's mine. I've modified the pressure curve, I've modified the texture, to really suit me. And that's one of the things that you can do, in Photoshop is take existing brushes, you modify them, and you make them their own. And you can create new brushes from the ground up, which I highly recommend you doing as well. I don't really recommend you doing what I did, which is collect brushes. I've probably got over 5,000 brushes in my archive. I don't use hardly any of them. I probably use maybe 10, which is ridiculous. But that's what happens when you've been in the business for 20 years. You get brushes here and there, you obtain brushes, people give you brushes, you buy brushes, and that's again one of the strengths of Photoshop is that huge, brush archive that is out there in the world that you can purchase, you can make, and a lot of other programs do that too. Procreate, I've done that with Procreate. I probably have, maybe $300, $400 worth of brushes in Procreate. And brushes are just a tool. I know some people are purists and they're like, you shouldn't use anything but the core brushes in Photoshop. And I think that's just foolish, to be honest with you. Photoshop is exactly what you make of it. It is customizable. You do whatever you want as an artist, and whatever gets you to the end result is the best thing for you. So hopefully I won't get too many bad comments about that, as if I have purists out there. But yeah, so right now I'm just putting in some highlights, again, messing around with the highlights and maybe doing some rim lighting. Not, it's still real loose. I'm not going in there and being heavy-handed. I'm just having some fun. That's what I'm trying to do. Have some fun. That's what I really want to do. So we're going to get to talking here in a minute, and I'm going to do an outro. Yeah, this is where I grab the halftone, because I felt like it needed something a little bit more in terms of a texture, and I didn't want to put a heavy-handed texture on there, so I put the halftone in there, which gives it, again, something a little bit different. And, that's an artistic choice that we make as creators. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say over the time lapse. So let's get busy on the outro. So enjoy. And that is this isn't necessarily the final. This is where I'm going to stop. I think I'm going to go in and do a little bit of dodge and burn. As you see, I can boost up some of those highlights here and there to kind of push and pull some of those contrast areas. And I think that this is kind of where I wanted to land with this piece. Maybe brighten the highlight right there. Maybe down here. Maybe right around here. I want that to be a little bit lighter. Kind of give that purple hue. Contrasting with the yellow, contrasting with the green, contrasting with the blue. This was a fun piece. This really wasn't supposed to be anything major, not a painterly type illustration. I just wanted to show you guys something seasonal, something fun. I am working on a tutorial for XP Pen right now, and hopefully once they publish that, I'll be able to put that on the channel. And I'll be doing some more of these creatures and monsters just for this, seasonal month. I didn't do Inktober this year. Those of you who follow me on social media see that I didn't do Inktober, basically because I got a lot of work and I don't really have the time to do Inktober, even though I do have time to kind of get these illustrations like this, do them, 3 and 4 days, and spend 20, 30 minutes on them here and there. So, that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed me rambling on and painting in Photoshop. The the painting you see, kind of a Frankenstein hybrid. I've got a thing for Frankenstein. That and the classic Universal monsters. Your Creature from the Black Lagoon, your Wolfman, your Dracula. But not real gross. I don't really go gross with them. I like to give them a little bit more character, give them a little bit more nuance, maybe toy around with the character design a little bit, and throw a halftone over it. As you see, I just threw this halftone in again to give it a little bit more spice and life. If I go in and I start messing around, and I start maybe do this a little bit lighter. Make sure that I don't have that on. I go back, splatter. maybe have this coming in. Even just this right here gives it kind of that gritty feel, and I love grit. I just love it. It's something about who I am as an artist. I like that gritty feeling that adds to that factor. Anyway, that's all I had for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed what you see. Like and subscribe if you like, and please share. I'm trying to grow the channel all the time, and definitely also I always forget to say this. I opened a store. It's on the shelf. Stuff on the shelf here, just some designs that I've done over the years, and nothing promoting the channel. It's not necessarily saying, hey, Michael Clarida Arts, look, I like supporting the channel. It's nothing like that. Just some cool art here and there that you guys can purchase from my Spreadshirt account. And let's go ahead and do this. We'll go to overlay. No, I don't want to do overlay. Let's do lighter. And it helps support the channel here and there. Like I said, I typically in a month I make about $125 to $150 a month on my YouTube channel, which covers the electricity used, covers any additional items that I may purchase, markers and whatnot, to help review. So anyway, thank you guys, and we'll see you soon, okay?